Hey there, Superboy fans, and welcome back to Superboy the Legacy, where we're going to be reviewing issue 5 of Superboy the comic book, the tie-in comic for the series. I am your host, Tom Gallagher, with my co-host, Chris Jacobsen.
Hey, everybody.
Superboy fact checker. It's always fun going through these comics because I always notice things that I miss. We will obviously talk way more in depth about this issue, but right off the bat, should we just talk about the cover because it's kind of significant in a way?
Yep.
It's now this came out before the Superboy clone from the Death of Superman arc was invented, so it's just kind of cool to see because it's Clark Kent Superboy, kind of reflecting what a clone Superboy would come to look like in the future. I just think that's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely great that it does foreshadow what was going to come in the next 3 years.
Yeah, big time. And it's funny because I'll get into it with the issue itself as well in a minute. But yeah, there is another thing where this sort of reflects what would happen in the future, but the connection is a lot more flimsy than the cover art. But
yep,
I'll talk about that more when we actually get a bit further into the issue. So should we just start?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, the issue opens and they're in a store and suddenly these guys come in who one of the kids in the store says these guys look like rock stars because they're in future clothing, which I think is kind of fun. And obviously he's talking about one of the rock star looking people is talking about how they were sent through a stream, and it's science fiction. We can guess stream usually relates somehow to time stream. So
yep.
And judging by the fact that one of them's got like a metal arm like Winter Soldier in the first shot that we see of him, unless it's just like a metallic costume, I think it looks like he's actually partly metallic. But
I think it's a metallic costume, so
right, it's very cool looking.
Yep. One of the panels here, as they're picking up the newspaper, it says Superboy Ferris wheel tragedy, and they make mention of what happened in issue 4.
Yeah, which is cool. Nice little bit of continuity going on.
Yep.
And you can even see just below the Ferris wheel tragedy, you can see Giant Stu turned to.
Yeah.
So it's like we know what that is talking about, and yeah, I love it when they aren't afraid to reference something that happened in a previous issue, and they keep it subtle enough, and just they keep it to the point where you don't. If you missed the issue before, it doesn't really matter too much. It's just like you could put Superman Ferris wheel averts Ferris wheel tragedy in any issue of a Superman comic, and people just say, "Oh, that's what he did last week."
Yeah,
and it's a fun way to actually mix it into real continuity with the comics. Yeah, I love that. I think it's great.
Yeah,
and we also have the woman say, "Let's see if he lives up to his legend," which is another clue that they're from the future, which is fun.
Yep. Next page is absolutely a great shot of Superboy.
Yeah,
it's great splash page. He's using a metal wrecking ball to knock down a building.
Yeah, for fun. He's looking to unwind. He's just done his midterms, and he was going a bit stir crazy. He's like, "What can I do for fun? I'll go destroy a building." I just think it's such a funny sort of Superman thing to do. Like, yeah, and let's face it, Superman's got a history of destroying buildings, not just in movies but in comics as well. I think one of his very first stories involved him destroying a load of derelict buildings, so the city would have to build new ones.
Yep. I love the fact that they've got the credits on this page, and of course, you got John Moore as the writer, Jim Mooney is the layouts, Ty Templeton does the finishes, John Costanza letterer. But the part that really is very important here is it says acknowledging the historic work of Otto Binder, Al Plastino, and Mort Weisinger.
Do you know why they've got a mention in this issue? Was it like was there some news that happened around the time?
No, it's because of what this story is essentially an adaptation of.
Oh, okay.
The first appearance of the Legion of Superheroes in comics was done by Plastino, Binder, and Weisinger. And that was Adventure 247. You got it.
Yeah, it's a reprint, but it's perfect condition. I just didn't know that they'd, I like the Legion, but I wouldn't have known off the top of my head exactly who created them. And because this isn't actually the Legion, I just wondered if there was something else that had happened around the same time. But that completely makes sense.
They are, and yet they aren't the Legion at the same time,
which is a very Superboy thing to do.
Yeah, because they didn't have the rights to the Legion when it came down to the rights for the show. They had the rights to Superboy character and anybody who appeared as a regular guest star as a Superboy character.
It was mostly things that were introduced in Superboy.
Yeah,
as well.
I mean, one could assume that you could use the Legion because they were introduced in a Superboy story,
but it was Adventure Comics. Like when I spoke to Mike Carlin years ago about it, I asked him why the Legion never had a Superboy episode, and he said just purely because their first appearance was in Adventure Comics, it meant it was off the table. They weren't allowed to use them. Like, yeah, which makes sense, but it's a bit silly. It's It almost makes me wish that a story like this issue from the comics could have happened on the show, because they don't call them the Legion in the comic. It's obvious that they're not by the end of the issue. Like, it's just a shame they didn't do it on the show. But let's face it, these comics are so good that I think pretty much every issue we say, I wish this was an episode of the show.
Absolutely. We do that every episode.
Pretty much. But should we move on to the next page?
Yeah. So let's see.
So yeah, he talks to the construction workers for a bit and just asks, like, is he doing a decent job? And they're just happy because they because of the rain, they lost a week a little while ago, so he's basically helping them catch up. So they appreciate him doing it, which is really cool.
If you notice the wrecker truck that's sitting there,
it says construction.
Yep, another reference to our illustrious Al Plastino, who was a New York native, by the way. He passed away about 5 or 6 years ago.
No, that's a shame.
Yep.
He obviously just creating the Legion. I mean, the Legion is something that they just don't get the respect that they deserve as characters. Like, people forget about the Legion so often, and like it's only the comic fans that really know of the Legion, or people that saw the animated series that was released a few years ago, which was pretty good actually.
Yeah, and one thing you can say about that animated series is they took one of the greatest stories in the history of the Legion, which was the Sun Eater story, and they adapted it, and they did such a great job at it.
Kind of makes me wish they kept it going. But wasn't there like a clone of Superman in that show as well? Like, it's been I've not seen it all, and there was a clone. Like, that was supposedly he's like a really cool character, and occasionally I'll see people say, "Oh, I wish they bring that character back in the comics."
Well, here's
I think he was invented for the show, though, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was invented for the show. But he, when you look at it, he was just a stand-in for Mon-El, which I don't know why they didn't use. Their reasoning was, oh, well, he's too similar to Superman, and yet you're making a clone who is exactly the same, except he can create kryptonite from his hands and is immune to it.
Yeah.
How is that different from Mon-El all that much?
Now, to me, I would just have both. I would just have both characters there the whole time, because I think that would be interesting. But still have the clone of Superman, but have Mon-El in there as well. But yeah, it's always a shame to not have Mon-El involved. Which reminds me, when we write a season 5 Legion story, Mon-El will have to have at least a mention.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, so he goes back into the building to continue his demolition, and one of these future people is waiting for him, and he's calling him Clark Kent. He's talking about the fact that he learned who Superman was because he read it in a book, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
He refers to it just as the big book, so Who knows? It's the future. Maybe the big book is new slang for the internet.
Yeah, and of course he says he's using the term ultra core.
Yeah.
Obviously, more future slang.
Isn't it funny how future slang never quite works? I can't think of any future slang in a comic or movie that really works for me.
Yeah.
It's always a little bit cringeworthy, isn't it? It's what was it in the Flash when they had XS come from the future? That it was Barry's daughter, wasn't it? And she had this one piece of slang from the future, and it just never quite worked for me.
Hmm.
God,
It's been a while since I watched.
yeah, I haven't watched it since it aired, and I haven't watched the last couple of seasons of The Flash because it's just gotten so bad. But
Yeah, and I only just started watching season 4 of Supergirl.
bless you.
Sorry about that.
See, I never watched the last season of Supergirl as well. Just
Yeah.
I got behind with it, and then someone spoiled the ending for me, where she stops being Supergirl, and I'm just like,
Yeah, and there's been talk in the news that Melissa Benoist wants to come to Superman and Lois as Supergirl.
I'm fine with that. But to be honest, since this is a different Earth in Superman and Lois, I kind of hope that they have Kara crash as a child again and just start fresh. Because clearly there isn't a Kara in this universe already, or she would have
Yeah.
had a mention by now. So, like, bring her back. Like, she arrived in the pilot episode of Supergirl. Have her arrive as a young girl and just maybe have her join the Kent farm, and he teaches her to use her powers the same way that he teaches Jordan.
Yeah.
I think that would be a lot of fun for the show. It'd be almost like another sibling.
Yeah, and then of course we all know about the fact that we lost Jonathan, and he's being replaced.
Yeah. It's it's sad because he was really good in the show. I think he's a really solid actor, and it's especially sad because he's had to do it because of mental health issues, which I just hope that he's doing okay.
Yeah.
I
Same
hope that
here.
he gets healthy, he gets well. But yeah, have they announced, Stephen, who is replacing him yet?
An Australian actor. I have no idea who he is. Never seen him before.
Well, you know what? I'm not even going to look it up. I'll just, when the show starts airing season 3, I'll find out then, or when they release trailers or whatever. Or
Yep.
yeah. In the meantime, it's fine.
All right.
But anyway, so the guy is showing off. He's got this future guy is using his superpowers and basically destroys the entire building in a second, almost like just by snapping his fingers. Almost, it's like just that quick and easy for him. And yeah, it's just really fun. Just like when you read this comic for the first time, you would assume that this is the Legion, but I don't think, like, as much as I love the cover for this issue, I don't think it serves the story as well as it could, because you can pretty much tell that they're bad guys on the cover. Whereas I think this comic would be a lot more interesting if you thought on the cover that they were good guys and it was a twist that came later in the story. I don't know. That's maybe that's just me. But yeah, so then we go back to the. I'm assuming this is at the university or something, or Clark's just covering it for the newspaper, for the Herald. And yeah, this guy is going to try and assassinate is it a senator? Let's see. Yep, Senator Dempsey. And this, yeah, this crazy guy he comes running in with a gun, and he's talking about how the television people have pushed him into doing it. And yeah, it's just, typical fun Superman story. Like, very serious in real life, but in a Superman story, when he happens to be there, it's lighthearted because just immediately it's, yeah, Superman's about to go and use his heat, like Clark's going to use his heat vision to heat up the gun and make him drop it, but he doesn't have to. Something in his head makes him drop the gun. And then we meet the second of the not Legion. Yeah, I think it's fun. And it's, she also tells him she knows he's Superboy. And yeah. I like what Lana calls her as well. Hey, Clark, who's your heavy metal cheerleader girlfriend? I think that's a fun summary of what she's dressed like.
Yep. Yeah.
So yeah, they're at a concert, and Superboy is there with the three future people who are Shift, Wildstar, and Tara, and they're talking about the fact that they're from the future and they know he's Superboy because of the fact that because they're from the future, his identity has been known for some time. And at first, Superboy thinks they're joking around with him, like he doesn't quite believe them. But I think it's fun. They talk about history textbooks and all this. All these interesting things, and they're coming back from the future, and it just plays out like the first meeting of the Legion and Superboy. And at this point, you really just don't see the twist coming, and I think that's great, except for the cover.
Yep.
But it's still just a really fun story, and
and they make mention that they come from the year 2239.
Right, I'm trying to remember when the Legion are from.
31st century.
Oh, so they're not quite from that far into the future then.
Yeah.
Which is fine. You can still see that the Legion's coming. Maybe they're a precursor to the Legion, but to be honest, they probably just put that as the year that they come from to distance themselves from the Legion legally.
Yeah.
Which is funny because this is published by DC Comics. You think they could use anyone?
Yeah, but
Mike Cullen, if you're watching, like maybe let us know, like why weren't the Legion allowed to be in the comics, or was it just never? Was the point always that this wouldn't be the Legion, and you're telling that story because it's a really fun issue. I just kind of wish it was the Legion because I love when the Legion and Superboy interact.
Yeah, I mean, those were some, as you know, my first issue of any comic was Superboy and the Legion number 246. You know, so I have a love for both Superman / Superboy and the Legion.
Mm. It's one of the reasons that Superman's Secret Origin is my favorite origin of the character, is because they brought back the Legion, and I love that. And then Jeff Johns actually wrote Superman and the Legion of Superheroes sort of story, and that was a really fun story as well. And yeah, the Lightning Saga is kind of cool. It's not my favorite, but I like that they keep trying to bring them back, and even though it doesn't quite work most of the time, I think most of the reboots of the Legion have kind of failed. It's the ones that stick to their original characters that work for me.
Yeah, I mean, the most recent one with John Kent, they were not the Legion.
I haven't read it. Everyone's told me don't read it. If you like the Legion, it's not the Legion.
Yeah, they are Lino. Legion in name only. I mean, there was no reason to do some of the changes that they did to the characters, you know. But, you know, I'm not going to go into that.
I mean, it's not the first time like that the Legion have come back and been done badly. Like,
oh yeah,
I'm trying to remember. Didn't they try and bring them back in the 90s at one point?
Yeah, that was one of the longer running reboots, which was actually pretty good.
Was it good? Which one was the one when they brought them back? It was before Bendis, and it was like they brought them back and they were kind of bad. Like they weren't as good guys as they were. I know the Lightning Saga has some allusions to the fact that maybe there's some dark stuff happening, but I can't remember if it was that or something else. Like Lightning Saga, I've only read the once.
Let's see. Bendis's reboot was the fourth reboot or the fourth iteration of them. First iteration is the classic, which we all love.
Was the second the 90s?
Second was the 90s, which it was very good. The third was the one that was started by Mark Waid. That was pretty awful.
Maybe that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I mean,
then they got brought back by Jeff Johns, but I think with most of Jeff Johns' story, like, I mean, that's pretty good.
It was, yeah, that one was the classic run, the classic version of the characters. Just slightly tweaked.
He updated them. He made them feel like they actually work in a contemporary story.
Oh yeah,
Superman, the Legion of Superheroes. Great collection, this, and it's actually got, I think, their first appearance printed in the back. If it's not the first appearance, it's like one of the early appearances, but
yeah,
absolutely fantastic story.
I think that is the first appearance of them.
Yeah, and obviously
I,
Secret Origin, which is also it's only a short Legion segment, but it was enough to get the next story prompted.
and the one of the best things about Secret Origin is that firmly reestablished his time as Superboy, even though it wasn't Superboy in the you know
Yeah,
you know
they never named him Superboy, but he was wearing the costume and he was still helping people. He was just almost doing it like the Blur in Smallville. Like he
yeah
was just getting in, getting out at super speed. Nobody knew he was there.
yeah
Mostly because he was embarrassed by the costume. He didn't want people to see him in it. Like there's a funny line in it where Mar gives him the suit and he's just like, "Yeah, you won't have
I
to worry
am
about me moving too
I
slow.
am
I don't want
never
anyone."
wearing this ever again. Yeah, and we all know that that's not the truth.
Yeah.
But that firmly reestablished his time as Superboy, without being Superboy, and then the Doomsday Clock story from several years later
I've
put it
only read the
back.
first half.
Yeah, it put it back completely.
That's cool. Yeah,
Um,
I need to finish Doomsday Clock. Like it's one of those things where I was really enjoying it and I was buying each issue as it was releasing, but then about halfway through, wasn't there just like a year delay for the next
yeah,
issue, and then there was
yeah,
like a 6 month delay, and then another year, and it was just absolutely
yeah.
ridiculous. And I was just
I
like, I'm
think
not
part
gonna bother anymore.
yeah I think part of the problem was that final issue, when reality got reset
Mm,
and the Legion shows up, it wasn't the classic Legion that we'd been working with. It
yeah,
was Bendis's Legion, and it just
yeah,
didn't work. But
yeah.
that's
And the
just me.
delays happened right as Bendis was coming on board. And it's
Yeah,
just like a part of me wonders if he was just like if he got given like an advance copy of Doomsday Clock's ending and was just like, I want to reintroduce the Legion, but I'm going to do this with it. So can you change the ending so that it fits? And that's
yeah,
what caused a lot of delays. Like it wouldn't surprise me. Like
yeah,
it's a shame because I think it would be cool to end any story and you see the classic Legion suddenly show up, especially in a story as dark as Doomsday Clock, to end with like this bright, hopeful vision of the future with the Legion showing up. I've not
yeah,
read it, but I'll have to
yeah.
get to it at some point. I'll buy it as like a trade paperback or something. But
Yeah.
anyway, so we're really just talking about the Legion with this. It's one of
Well,
these stories
this
that
is
we kind of
yeah,
have to, but
yeah. We definitely have to. Um,
yeah, so we see Superboy, sorry, flying away, and he's wondering what the future's going to be like, and yeah,
yep.
he wonders if he goes with them, can he like waive a history requirement, which is
Yeah.
kind of fun. But
Yeah, and then of
yeah,
course one thing we forgot to mention. Um, this issue is basically set during season 2 because this is our first comic appearance of Andy.
yeah, which is cool. Like he just sort of shows up. There's no introduction of Andy like we did with TJ,
Yep.
but yeah, it's cool. It's funny because when I first started reading this, I was like, "Who's the blonde guy?" Like, because obviously it's not TJ, and it took me a while to actually think, "Oh, Andy's just in it now." Like, there's
Yeah.
no. I thought at least there would be some sort of introduction to Andy,
Well,
but
you got to think about it this way. We
I
had a
mean,
great
people
introduction
reading,
to Andy in the first episode of
yeah,
season 2, so we
yeah,
really didn't need one in the comic.
yeah. I just wonder because sometimes you do get people that read the comic just because it's a comic and they love to read, and they might not even have watched the show.
Yeah.
But I guess with Superboy the comic, it is so obscure that you pretty much guarantee if you're reading it, you have watched the show. So yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. You don't need it. But yeah, it's funny looking at this page as Clark goes to meet them and they're sitting down. The artwork looks 1950s to me, like with Lana's hairstyle and what she's dressed in. She's got like a green cardigan on and
Yeah.
like what is it, like a turtleneck sweater, and I don't know, it just looks very 50s to me. It almost looks, yeah, it looks like the old school Superboy comics for a second. And
Well,
I'm not complaining about it because I like the classics, but it's just kind of
yeah,
funny
I,
that
I mean, I mean, it is Jim Mooney doing the artwork, and I mean, he'd been working since the 1940s. So
also as well, it kind of works for this issue because it makes it makes more of a drastic difference between what Lana's wearing, say, and what the Not Legion are wearing.
Yeah.
Because it makes them look just that little bit more futuristic. Because let's face it, people wore some ridiculous stuff in the 80s. Like if you were drawing everyone dressed like the 80s, the future people wouldn't look as out of place. You just think, yeah, they're rock stars, like the kid at the beginning.
Yeah.
But the next page.
Yep. We're back at
Wanna...
we're back at Clark and Andy's dorm room, and of course Andy's got all these boxes all over the place.
Yeah, all marked Taiwan.
Yep.
Yeah, he's an entrepreneur. You know, he's he's getting product to sell, and we see what it is, and it's this mug. And I've got to say as well, like regarding Andy's Superboy mug, probably the most tasteful of Andy's merchandising suggestions that I've seen. Like, you think the masks of Superboy's face kind of ridiculous? Like, that mug is pretty cool. I would buy one of those.
Yeah.
But most of Andy's stuff that he's trying to sell merchandising wise is pretty garish and tasteless.
No, the T-shirt idea he had in the show.
T-shirt's good.
Was not too bad. I mean, the masks that while we think it's garish for us, he was marketing it for kids.
That's true. That's true. So, and they sell Superman masks for kids.
Yeah.
That is true. But I don't know. I just think the mug looks kind of classy. And I would buy one of those mugs. I kind of want to recreate that mug design in Photoshop and have it printed onto a mug. I might actually have to do that.
And knowing you probably will.
Yeah, and I'll drink from it during future episodes of the show.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just a really cool design. I don't know. Kudos to Andy.
Yeah, he actually had a good idea for once.
Yeah. Move on to the next page.
Yeah. He storms out because he's sick and tired of people wanting a piece of him.
Yeah, because let's face it, he thinks about it in this story. Pretty much everyone that day has wanted a piece of him, except for maybe the construction workers who just appreciated the fact that he was there. But you got the people from the future wanting him for something, and then you got Andy wants Superboy for merchandising, and you can see why he's a little bit annoyed. But then he meets up with Tara from the future, and they fly away over a giant seagull, which I love. I just love that the word seagull is so huge in that one frame.
Yep.
But he also to tell him about the future, and they go and fly, and they have a race, which I think is always a fun idea. Whenever you have two superpowered characters who are fast, you've got to have them race at least once.
Yeah, and Wildstar, he's the stand-in for Lightning Lad.
Mm.
One thing I want to point out here, at this time in the comics, that was during the era of the 5 years later of the Legion, and Ultra Boy, who was the other member of the team who had superpowers like Superboy, he was sporting a very similar design to himself. Tattoo on one arm, right by the shoulder. And of course, I think he had long hair in a ponytail. But Wildstar's powers, while they're supposed to be an XP of Lightning Lad, it seems more like Sunboy, with fire. But there's lots of little callbacks to other members of the Legion in these three.
Yeah, it's kind of cool that obviously because they can't use the Legion, they're sort of merging multiple power sets together to create something a little bit more original. As original as you can get with superhero like powers in comics.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything's been done at this point. But it's really cool to see, and it's kind of funny seeing him just like instantly melt a bottle of cola, and it's just he's just showing off his powers for a second.
Yeah.
But then they go off and they race, and I think the artwork for their race is really nice. Like I love the sort of the whoosh as they fly around that building on the very top panel. Yep. I just think that's a really nice image, and the action is just really well put together, I think, in this.
Yeah, I mean this is one of those sequences that you would have loved to have seen in the actual show.
would have cost him an absolute fortune to do it this well.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure they could have done it, but it probably the blue screen would have been a little bit off, and yeah, the
Yeah.
choice of camera angle wouldn't be quite as good. You wouldn't have them swooping under like an overpass and all of that stuff necessarily. But yeah, you see this whole race going on, and he's sort of showing off, and to try and make Superboy lose the race to him, like, doesn't he pretty much, like, yeah, he
Yeah.
flies in front of the truck. I don't know if he's ever said that he did it on purpose to make the truck crash, or if he was just showing off. But yeah, first
Yeah.
clue that maybe they're not the Legion.
Yeah. Although, if you look at issue 247 of Adventure, the Legion, when they were doing their tryout with him, they were purposely, making it so that he'd fail the tryout.
But I'm trying to remember, they weren't putting anyone innocent like in danger though during that, were they?
Not really. No.
That's the difference with this. Like, that truck driver could have been killed.
Yeah.
But it's nice, like, as you say, like, making sure that he loses. Like, it's an echo of the Legion story. Yeah, because they put a life in danger, for sure, like, the Legion wouldn't have gone that far. Maybe at least not the classic Legion that we know and love. But yeah, he's angry. Like, he almost caused a major accident, and he's just angry with them, and they start calling him like he's a Nova Patrol Scout, which I mean, that works as an update of Boy Scout. But yeah, and as they're walking around, like, Andy approaches, and he's trying to pitch some of his merchandising ideas, as always. Like, he wants to represent them and make merch and make them rich, and they're not having it, so they teleport him to the roof of a building, and he's just up there. It's just like, how could you do that to someone? And the guy's like, what's the problem? And he's just like, yeah, who do you think you are? Like, you can't play around with people's lives like that. And he's just like, yeah, Andy can be annoying, but he didn't deserve that. And Clark is really kind of pissed off with him.
Yeah.
As he should be. It's like, it's not really a joke. Like, okay, they know that he'll catch Andy if he falls, but I mean, that's terrifying. And even Andy says in that one shot in front of the statue of a dolphin, for some reason, like, he's got to go to the health center because he's in shock.
Yeah.
So they think it's a joke. Totally not a joke.
Yeah. Although this is kind of a different Andy than the one we've seen from the show. He was never this weirded out by stuff.
Yeah, that's true. The only time I remember him probably getting a full-on bit of trauma was when Mixes Pitlick made his hair grow. He tugs on it. He's like, "This is real."
Oh yeah, I love that scene. It took them 2 hours to cut and style my hair back to normal, and on the way there, 2 guys tried to pick me up.
One of my absolute favorite Andy moments ever. It's the only time I remember him actually sort of getting some comeuppance that he didn't just immediately laugh off. Like, he was annoyed about that. Really fun.
Yep.
But do you want to take us through the next page?
So Wildstar starts blasting. Andy jumps out of the way. And
it's a cool little fight sequence, this, because the camera angles and the way this works, you totally could have had this fight scene in the show. Like, this isn't like the race would have been difficult for them on the budget they had because of the swooping camera and the fact that there's so many different angles, and that's what makes it fun. This fight is pretty much, you could shoot that relatively easily
up to the last point.
Up to the last point when he falls in a pool. Teleport him into a pool.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The teleportation would have been that.
I mean, that's easy enough. They had teleportation in Star Trek.
It's just for the budget that they were on, to have somebody blasting energy and then a teleportation scene.
Yeah.
They would have been looking at it like,
It probably would have looked like Mixie's teleportation effects. It's like a little particle that just bursts and that's it.
yeah,
But it's a fun little fight scene. I mean, nowadays, literally, the two of us could get together and shoot that. If we
yeah,
lived close enough, like I could shoot that, and I could probably even do most of the special effects if I needed to.
yeah,
It's just fun. I like the reason I like it is just because it does feel like the show in a way.
yeah,
It's not some smashing through buildings, giant,
yeah.
fight.
And then, of
Anyway,
course, when he comes out of the pool, Tara is there waiting for him. Now, Tara is essentially the Saturn girl homage amongst the group, and she's the only one whose powers are exactly the same.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Maybe they just figured, they've differentiated it enough that they don't need to change her too much more.
Yeah.
But I've got to say as well, her costume is my favorite of the three.
I don't know. I'm kind of partial to Wildstar, though.
I mean, Wildstars is fine. I like Wildstar is the one with the metal arms and stuff.
No, that's Shift.
What you? I'm not as keen then on Wildstar's costume. I like Shift, but I think her costume, Tara's, is my favorite. I just think it's cool.
Yeah. And then there's another.
She does
fight.
just look like a rock star, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
There's another fight at the pool. Wildstar lifts him up, throws him against the lifeguard station.
Yeah, she's in his head, like causing him intense pain in his head, and it's really cool to see how she's what's the word? She's incapacitating Superboy without
actually
force.
doing. Yeah.
Yeah, she's literally just standing there with her hand outstretched, and he's on the floor in absolute agony. And considering how powerful we know Superboy and Superman to be, that's impressive. Like she's a serious threat. And
Yeah.
I just think that's a really cool. I just think this is a really fun scene. Like as soon as the twist happens and we realize they're bad, to have this just fight scene, I just think it's a really cool fight scene. And Superboy is like he falls under the the lifeguard station, as you said, and he's not even able to lift it off of him at this point because he's like he can't even think because, as he says, she's crushing every nerve in my brain.
Yep.
And yeah, just really, really well done. Like I love this issue. Like it's probably my second or third favorite, but we'll talk about that at the end.
Yep. And then of course he's while he's not able to react much, and this is on the next page, he says he's thinking to himself, the noise inside my head, like fingernails on a chalkboard. And then he realizes what to do.
Yeah.
He uses his invulnerable fingernails on the metal of the station to create fingernails on a chalkboard.
Yeah.
Which of course we all know every telepath in every comic has always been susceptible to sound.
Yeah. Telepaths and Venom symbiotes.
Yeah.
But it's cool as well because can you imagine the noise? Because let's face it, if you were at school and a teacher ever did the nails on a chalkboard, the noise that can come out of that is ridiculous.
Oh,
Can you imagine invulnerable Superman nails? The noise that would make, you better hear it for miles.
Yeah.
But I just thought it's a really fun little way to quickly get the better of them, and he steals the time warp system, as they call it, so they can't get back. And he's just like, he basically threatens them, like, blast me or zap me or send me to Peru, and I will crush this time device, and you will not be getting home. And it's just, It's a fun way to end it. Like they're so powerful that you can't just end it with beaten, bloody, like bruised and all of that stuff. Yep. End it with an ultimatum, like, I will crush this thing if you do not just agree to leave now. And it's totally Superman thing to do. Like, he's not worried about beating them. He just wants them to leave at this point. And yeah, I like it. I think it's a fun conclusion to
Yep.
the
And of
story.
course, shift is the vote that says, yeah, let's leave. Let's leave him
Yeah,
alone and go home. Wildstar, of course, being the hothead,
mm.
saying no, I want to kick the crap out of him.
Yeah,
And Superboy then says, it's a split vote, Tara. Break the tie.
yeah,
And her the look on her face, the way Jim Mooney drew it, is just so blasé. And she
yeah,
says, I'm bored. Let's go.
yeah. Which is great. It's like, yeah, it gives each of the three of them their own characters. Like, I can't remember. I don't know if they appeared again. Maybe you can tell me.
They do in the two-part 15 and 16.
Right, that's cool. I'll look forward to seeing them again. But I think it's fun that in just this one issue where they're not in all of it like together, but we have an idea just from the end. We know sort of who the characters are a little bit more. We know what their personalities are like, and I just think it's really well done. Like, it's really well written. Who wrote this issue? Was it
It's John
John
Moore
Moore
again.
again?
Yep.
Of course it is. But just another fantastic issue, and yeah, I thought it was really, really well done. I thought the artwork was great, and yeah, we see at the end that Andy is fine. He
Yeah.
comes back one more time to try and pitch merchandising again. Like, clearly didn't learn his lesson. He got over the shock quickly, it seems.
Yeah.
But
And of course, he comes back, says, Superboy, I don't know where your friends went, but my management offer still holds. And Clark's just response to him is, do you ever give up?
I'm guessing he didn't even go to the med center because that fight was over relatively quickly.
Yeah.
So it's, Andy is such an entrepreneur that he'll put his own health at risk to make a
Which
sale.
he has.
Which he has multiple times on the show, and I'm guessing he'll continue to do throughout the comics. But yeah, I just we've come to the end of it now, and Clark and Lana are just sort of talking, and he realizes now that because Lana and Andy were going on about Superboy, like, Lana comes with a peace offering because she realizes that it annoyed him, and he obviously forgave her. Like, I think he just says, like, I can't afford to lose my real friends, because now he's comes to appreciate that they're his real friends, and
Yeah.
those future people were so not.
Yeah.
So yeah, nice little message at the end.
Yep.
And yeah, he's learned about the power of friendship. But yeah, really fun issue. I really, really enjoyed this. Like, if I was to give it a rank out of 10, I'd maybe give it 8.
I'd say an 8.5, but that
8.5.
I'm giving the extra 0.5 because, having read this when it first came out and having been a Legion fan, all my life, I gave it the extra 0.5 because of that, given that what we were getting in the Legion at the time was utter crap, because it was Keith Giffen's 5 years later, and I hated that. This was a hearkening back to the classic Legion that I grew up with, but not quite.
It was a cool twist on it.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's always fun. Like, it's why I really do love this cover. Like, I'm not just ragging on it. I think this is probably one of my top 3 favorite covers from the entire run.
Yeah.
But it kind of ruins the twist, and it's a shame.
It does, and then it doesn't. I mean, I think the part that ruins the twist for it is him with the sunglasses and the leather jacket.
Mm.
I mean,
the whole thing is, I'm saying the whole cover ruins the twist. Even the name Peer Pressure on the cover.
Yeah.
I don't know. I get why they do it, because they need to have a cover that will immediately get someone that doesn't know what comic to buy to say, oh, that one looks fun, and they'll pick that one off the stand. It's obvious why they do it, and I'm here for it. I think it makes sense, and so many iconic covers throughout history come from exactly that. But I wish that they found a way to make this look like it was going to be a Legion story, just so the twist wouldn't be ruined. And I think that's the only reason it doesn't get that extra 0.5 for me is because of the cover. And I know it's unfair, and it is one of my top 3. It is in my top 3 favorite covers, just because I just love that it gives sort of an idea about the future. But yeah,
and it is probably the first reference to his Kryptonian name in there, because when one of them shows up,
does one of them call him Kal-El?
Yeah, I believe it was. Yeah, it was Shift. When he meets Shift in the on the rooftop, the whole sequence is, aha, there you are. I've been all over this learning facility looking for you. I knew this would happen one day when I was distracted. Okay, you've got me dead to rights. I'm Superboy. And he says, of course you are. Do you think I wouldn't recognize the legendary son of Earth and Krypton, Kal-El?
That's cool. I didn't even pick up on that. Like, this is the first canonical mention of Krypton outside. I don't know when the episode with George Lazenby and Britt Eklund aired, but if this issue came out before that, this is the actual first clue that he's from Krypton, because at this point Superboy doesn't know that.
This is dated June 1990. So let's see. Season 2 was 89-90. So this is after that 2-parter.
But I wonder if canonically this is
definitely beforehand.
Yeah, because Andy is obviously, he's only just moved in this issue. You can tell because his room is filled with boxes from Taiwan, as we talked about earlier. Like I'm guessing at a certain point Clark put his foot down and said, you can't just keep all of this stuff in your dorm room. Either that or he did very, very well, and everybody bought a mug and they were just gone that afternoon. But yeah, I mean it, by the way, about that mug. I might have to try and make that.
Excuse me. Yeah. But again, the cover is so great because it is Kevin Maguire.
Oh, it's great. It's fantastic artwork. I think the characters, you get a bit of their personality in there. Like, I forget the girl's name. Tara, is it?
Yeah, Tara.
Like, she looks bored, just like at the end of the issue. You can tell who the hothead is immediately. Yep. And yeah, you can tell the one that's cool because he's got sunglasses on.
Yep. Although that high top,
it was cool at the time.
Yeah.
It's funny, whenever I see the flat top sort of haircuts now, all I think of is Jack O'Neill, the character in the original Stargate movie, Kurt Russell's character, because he's just got this perfect flat top. Like, he looks like Frankenstein's monster. It's so flat. Yeah. But yeah, just really cool issue. 8 out of 10 for me, 8.5 for you. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And yeah, do you want to have a quick look in the back pages? Does it have a preview of next issue? Yes, it does.
I believe it does.
Next issue. Okay. You want Lex Luthor? You got Lex Luthor. That's right. Lex makes his long-awaited appearance in Superboy the comic book. That's right. For all the season 1 stuff, Lex didn't appear ever.
Yeah.
I've only just realised that Lex hasn't been in it so far. Yeah. But he makes his long-awaited appearance, and already he's got a plan for revenge against Superboy. Who would have thunk it?
Lex Luthor's Kryptonite Reign is by John Moore, Jim Mooney, and Ty Templeton, and will be in your hands in about 30 days, unless you forget to buy it.
Yep. Cool. I'm super looking forward to the next issue when we review it. We always love a Lex Luthor story. I don't know any Superman fan that hates Lex Luthor stories, so it's pretty much something for everyone to look forward to.
Yeah. As much as in the movies and TV shows, he's been such an overused character. When you do him right, he is great.
That's one reason I love the first season of Lois and Clark. Like Lex's sort of campaign against Superman is continuing throughout the entire first season, but he only appears in a few episodes, and I just feel like because they used him just sparingly enough that it made the entire first season.
Well,
Feel
he actually was in every episode because John Shea
was
was
he in?
a
Was
regular
he in
member of
every episode?
every
He
episode.
wasn't. He wasn't the focus of every episode, though.
No, he wasn't, but somehow he was always there, and I think that's part of the reason why John Shea wanted out.
I wonder if they had cut that down and maybe given him 10 episodes throughout the season. Maybe he would have been able to stick around for season 2. And
well, Mike Carlin, since you were involved with the production of the show to a certain extent,
you can tell he was because his name is everywhere in that show. It's
yes,
like his name is like on doors, like on like signs on people's desks.
And he actually appeared in 1 or 2 episodes as a background character.
I remember, I seem to remember one of the crowd scenes where I could see him there. And there was a couple of other writers, I think, that were in that same shot.
Yeah, but I'm sure he could answer that, what the situation with John Shea was. You know,
it's funny though. You say he was in every episode. He does not feel overused in that season of the show.
Yeah,
they still use, even though he's in every episode, they still used him sparingly enough. And like he certainly feels like he's there less than the first season of Smallville, where Michael Rosenbaum definitely is in every episode and he's a major part of every episode.
Yeah,
it's I love Michael Rosenbaum's Lex. Don't get me wrong, but I wonder if they had used him a little bit more sparingly if he would have stayed full 10 seasons. Maybe not, because he would have had to keep shaving his head. But
yeah, I think that was the major reason with Michael Rosenbaum, because he had to keep shaving his head. You know,
it's a shame they couldn't have done the Gene Hackman wig idea.
Well,
maybe he has to disguise himself because he faked his death, so now Lex is wearing wigs.
Yeah. Yeah, which is something that they kept on the TV show, on this TV show. You know, the fact that Lex is constantly wearing wigs.
Yeah. Except for the fact that you can clearly tell when it's Sherman Howard's actual hair. Like, it's so obvious when it is, but that's just part of the fun. I love that in Superboy, is the fact that you can always tell when it is just Sherman Howard's hair.
Yeah.
But, anyway. Yeah. I'm looking forward to next issue. I love Lex Luthor as a character. I think it's a shame that he's in so many of the Superman movies. I do kind of hope that the next time they do a Superman movie, Lex just isn't the main villain. I don't mind if he's there. I don't mind if there's a Lex.
We all know who we want as our main villain for the next film.
Brainiac?
Yes.
Yeah. We've been waiting for Brainiac since Superman Lives. Like,
yeah.
The fact that Superman Lives was going to do both Doomsday and Brainiac.
And Lex Luthor.
Yeah. But then it wasn't really Doomsday. Like, they were going to have this weird sort of metaphysical sort of creature that makes Superman's fears show.
Yeah.
Like, I remember on that documentary, they talked about the fact that while Superman's fighting Doomsday, it would have kept changing its face. So, like, suddenly the face of like Lois Lane, suddenly the face of Mara and Pa Kent, and Superman's having to beat them to death. And it's like so Tim Burton and dark, but it's not really Doomsday. It would have been fun, though. I still would like to see that version of the character. Just name it something different. But I'm really going off topic now.
Yeah, we do that every episode. Our fans are used to that, Tom. You know that.
But I want to see I want to see Brainiac in a movie. I just do.
Yeah,
like, he was great. Did you ever watch Krypton in the end? I know I've recommended it a couple of times. You need to watch Krypton. Best version of Brainiac on TV ever, in my opinion. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Like, Krypton is a show that shouldn't have worked. Everybody before Krypton came out was like, that sounds terrible. That's going to be awful. It's on the Sci-Fi Channel, and it's like, no, it's really, really good.
I think part of the reason why everybody thought it was not going to work is because it was on the Sci-Fi Channel, and most of the stuff that Sci-Fi had been doing at the time was just utter garbage.
And originally as well, when they first announced it, and the original pilot was shot, written by David Goyer, and it was supposed to be canonical to Man of Steel. Like, it was set in the DCEU. But then they realized that actually if they set it on its own timeline, its own universe, they can actually do a lot more and have a lot more fun with it, which is cool, because then they had General Zod appear, and they had Doomsday in it, and they had Brainiac, and the Superman cape actually had the yellow S on the back, which is something that every other adaptation since Superman Returns has missed.
Yeah.
I,
You know,
Smallville had it in CGI, but that was it.
yeah. You know, I understand why they don't want to put the S on the cape any longer. You know, and you know,
I think they should bring it back. Because
I
the
I
fact that
I do.
animation, it would be difficult for animation, isn't a thing anymore. CG
Yeah.
on capes easily could just sort that out nowadays. I think it should
Yeah.
come back.
I mean, Bruce Timm, you know, when he'd been talking about, you know, the animated series in the 90s,
Mm.
you know, he made the point. He said, "Look, yes, I'm a traditionalist when it comes to it, but we had to look at it this way. It would cost that much more money to animate the symbol on the cape
Mm.
every single shot that we see him from behind." And
But they don't have to. It wouldn't cost any more money these days because the cape would just be a 3D animated item. They just stick on everything anyway.
yeah, I mean, heck, you know, Henry Cavill's cape was rarely ever actually there.
Yeah, it's CG. Like it's just changing the texture.
Yeah.
So bring back the LOS on the cape. Can you imagine the death of Superman, like that iconic image of the cape ripped and on a stick, and it's like flapping like a flag, and you just see the yellow S on it, and it's all torn to shreds. Wouldn't
Yeah.
look nearly as iconic if the LOS was missing, and it's just a piece of red fabric stuck on a
Yeah.
stick. Like the LOS for me is iconic. I
Yeah.
if I was doing any adaptation of Superman ever officially, it would be there for me.
Yeah.
There's no
You know,
reason not to, really.
it's 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 one of those iconic things that, you know, you can see somebody wearing a cape, and all you have to do, even if the cape is all in black,
Mm.
you know, you'll know exactly who it is when you see that yellow S on there.
Yeah.
You know, you know. I mean, there's very few capes out there that you just by looking at them and seeing one little element to it, you know exactly who we're talking about. You know, Superman because of the yellow S, Batman because of the scallops at the bottom. You know,
Mm.
Captain Marvel, you know, who they've renamed as Shazam, and I hate that. He's always going to be Captain Marvel.
He's always going to be Captain Marvel to me, but I've come to terms with the fact that he's now just Shazam. I'm fine with it. I
Yeah,
understand why they did it. It's fine.
yeah.
I don't mind calling him Shazam, but
But you know,
he's still Captain Marvel to me, like you say.
yeah, the shape of his cape and the way it's designed, you know,
Yeah, you got
everybody will
those sort of the floral sort of gold stitching down the edges of it, and it's like
yeah,
loopy bits, and yeah,
and it's a half cape usually. So I mean, there's very few capes, you know, in comics that people will recognize right off the bat.
yeah.
You know, and it's Superman. That's one of them.
And if you put Superman's cape in grayscale, like you just took all the color out of an image, you'd have no way of identifying whose cape that is. It could be anyone with a cape, except for Batman, because like you say, and except for Shazam, it could
Yeah,
be literally anyone else otherwise. But it always annoyed me in the CW universe because every now and then they would show an action figure or they would release like back when Supergirl season 1 came out, they kept releasing these posters for individual episodes. Like when they had the Flash crossover, they had a poster that was Supergirl and the Flash racing,
yeah,
and they had all these things in the background. And whenever they do stuff like that, and I think they even did it in Superman and Lois, the action figures sometimes still have the LOS.
yeah,
And every time I see it, I'm like, so at least in my head canon, at some point Superman had the LOS on his cape in Superman and Lois universe. He just, for
yeah,
some reason, he didn't have it on the first suit or his current suit. There must be a suit in the middle. But yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's just one of those things. I'm a nitpicker when it comes to the costume. I really am. I
yeah.
hate the new 52 costume.
You mean Superman wearing armor?
Yeah. To me, it looks more like something out of like a JRPG. It's like
Yeah,
something designed by Square Enix. And
yeah,
don't get me wrong, they can design some really cool looking characters. Like, I mean, I'm not into it myself, but you show me a picture of some of these cool armor costumes like Final Fantasy or whatever. They've got some really talented people working there, but it just doesn't work for Superman for me.
part of the problem with the new 52 suit, and a lot of people have pointed this out, and it's not just the fact that it's Superman wearing armor and
Yeah.
he's
Which
Superman.
is a big thing, though. So why would Superman need armor?
The only times that you could ever, justify him wearing armor is during the Crisis of the Crimson Kryptonite storyline, where he lost his powers,
If he
and
goes off world and there's no yellow sun, say it's a red
right,
sun planet.
or he's putting on the Kryptonian battle suit from the Fortress for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Okay, those are the only justifiable reasons.
Maybe if he goes to War World, he needs the extra power to go up
Yeah.
against Apocalypse or something.
But the problem with the New 52 suit, and no disrespect to Jim Lee, he is a talented designer and a talented artist.
Yeah,
The problem with the New 52 suit, and this isn't just Superman. This is every single New 52 suit that he designed. They all have that stupid V-neck military collar. It's almost like they were trying to do the X-Men without doing the X-Men for every single character.
Yeah, I do like the Flash's costume in the New 52. I think that worked. Aquaman's costume basically just went back to Silver Age for his costume for the New 52 for a while.
Except they removed the trunks. That's all.
Yeah. Well, they just gave him long green pants instead.
Yeah.
And like Batman, they removed the trunks as well. But I don't mind. I think Batman's suit works because his is supposed to be armor. Like that's one of the few suits where you can totally get away with making it armor.
And having that military style V-neck collar works on Green Lantern because he's a
definitely
cop. Cops are supposed to have a uniform. It's military. It works. But for somebody like Superman, it didn't work. And every single one of the New 52 designs had that flaw to it. Okay?
And let's face it, if you're making Superman appear in any way militaristic, you're doing it wrong. Superman and militaristic should not go together. It's one of the reasons that even though Frank Miller's Superman Year One that came out a couple of years ago, it's got a few little bits here and there that I like. I think just overall it completely missed the point. Why would I can never see a universe where Superman joins the military, and I think he even killed people as a soldier. I cannot see Superman doing that. It's just wrong for the character.
Frank Miller just does not seem to get any of the characters that he's done, and that's just my opinion. And he seems
Batman sometimes.
Yeah,
I like Earth. I like Batman Year One. Dark Knight Returns, I think, is a little bit overrated, in my opinion.
Oh, that's way overrated. He doesn't seem to get the characters. But the thing that Frank Miller seems to inject into stuff is these perverse sexual relationships into characters. Superman Year One, apparently his update to Lori Lamaris, the classic mermaid character from Superman. Oh, yeah, she's in a sexual relationship with her father. He seems to do this kind of stuff in every single one of the books that he's doing. I mean, and this stuff works fine for something like Sin City, where it's supposed to be, perverse. Yeah. You don't do this to a character like Superman and somebody that he comes across.
Have you heard his explanation for why Superman is the way that he is in Dark Knight Returns?
No.
He says the entire story is told from Batman's point of view, so Superman appears like a villain because that's how Batman sees him. How does that make sense? Because apparently he does that with every story he writes. Whoever the point of view character is in his story, that's why characters and their motivations, all that, can seemingly change from story to story because it's told from someone else's point of view. I just think it's silly, in my opinion.
It just shows that he's a one-trick pony. He's
I think Frank Miller, I've got a lot of respect for him, but I am not a huge Frank Miller fan. I don't he's done some amazing stuff, but not lately.
Amazing stuff, but it's not always that great.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the first creator to introduce a female Robin. Okay. All right, that's great. Okay, but
it was going to happen anyway. It would have happened soon.
He's not that he's not that great, in my
Mm.
opinion. You know,
No, I agree.
there are so many creators out there who are 10 times better than him. John Byrne comes to mind.
Yep.
Dan Jurgens. You
Yep.
know, I mean, these guys are characters, are writers and artists who get the characters they're doing. You know, I mean, look at John Byrne's run on Superman, the original run, and that
Yep.
includes Man of Steel. Okay,
It's got
everybody
its
was used.
problems. It's
Yeah,
got its problems, but it's
yeah,
overall it's absolutely fantastic. There's a reason that the John Byrne Superman is basically the one that is kind of still around. Like they've obviously changed bits, but more or less the character is the same.
yeah,
We're supposed to believe that the character of Superman that appeared in John Byrne's Man of Steel miniseries is the same Superman that we still see today.
yeah. With things that have been retconned back into him, like the
Yeah.
Superboy career.
Yeah,
You know,
Secret Origin added that back in, but it did it in a way that it didn't completely destroy the original continuity. It just said this is some stuff that happened as well.
yeah.
Worked perfectly for me.
But I mean, if you look at the Batman issue of Man of Steel, okay, when they first meet,
issue.
Everybody was was there. They were still dealing with the fact that they used to be friends. Okay, they were always best buddies.
Mm.
You're not going to be best buddies with somebody that you just met right from the get go. Okay,
No, of course not. They start, they start on opposite sides. Superman thinks Batman is brutalizing people, and Batman's like, I'm just trying to get information because all this stuff. And Superman picks up Batman by he's got his bat rope or whatever he calls it in the comics. I always call it the bat rope just because first time I saw it was in the animated 60s series.
Yeah.
But he lifts him into the sky and just like, no, I've got your attention. We need to talk. And it's fantastic.
He gets the characters, and that's what you need. Frank Miller, he doesn't really get the characters.
In my opinion, this is the super. I've had this since I was a kid, which is why it's like the corner's missing. But this is the superior Superman year one, and it even goes into the first meeting of Superman and Batman from Man of Steel, just told from a slightly different angle, new artwork and all that. But this was written by Louise Simonson, so she's a legend as well.
Yeah,
and I think she's a much better. For me, she's a much better writer than Frank Miller.
Yeah, Frank Miller. If you want a story that has lots of violence, no point, and a lot of perverse sex stuff, read Miller.
Yeah,
that's my take. Fans out there who are watching this, if you disagree, I'm not gonna take offense, but you got to remember.
Yeah, and you know what? People will just say you dislike Frank Miller, but you love Alan Moore. Completely different. They both tell some very dark, twisted stories, but Alan Moore can back it up. I think Alan Moore is basically what Frank Miller wishes he was. They're both crazy, but one of them is a crazy genius, and the other one is trying to be a crazy genius.
Yeah,
and I'm sorry, I respect Frank Miller, but I don't like his work. I think he's trying too hard.
Alan Moore, he can do perverse stuff, which he has. Okay,
absolutely.
But he can also do the quintessential superhero story. Like if you've read his run on Supreme. Okay,
I haven't read it, but
I highly recommend it. It's basically him doing a Silver Age Superman story without doing a Silver Age Superman story. It's his deconstruction and then reconstruction all at the same time.
I'll have to read that at some point. Supreme.
Yeah.
I've not even heard of it, to be honest.
It was done by Image Comics. It was basically their Superman, but when they first introduced it in the early 90s, the character was, a Superman with almost no morals.
Right, I've written it down so I'll remember. Yep. No, it sounds fun. But Alan Moore, he's just, let's face it, whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow, it's just a brilliant love letter to the Silver Age of Superman.
Yeah, and he wrote it as if it was, exactly what Julie Schwartz told him. Write it as if it's the final issue of Superman, period. Because technically it is, and technically it isn't.
It's fantastic. And he also wrote obviously the first Black Mercy story for The Man Who Has Everything.
Yeah.
And that too is another brilliant Superman story. It's a little bit darker, a little bit more twisted than whatever happens to Man of Tomorrow, which is crazy because whatever happens to the Man of Tomorrow is all about the death of Superman. Yet it still manages to be uplifting in a way, even though there are a couple of heartbreaking moments.
Yeah, but, he kills off a lot of the villains. In fact,
doesn't he kill like Brainiac, Luthor? Like he kills. Is Metallo there as well? I'm trying to remember.
Metallo is there. The Toyman and the Prankster are there. They get killed.
Yeah. Mixes Pitlick, I don't think gets killed.
Pete Ross gets killed. Jimmy gets killed. Lana gets killed. Mixie, well, we know Mixie gets killed in that.
Does Mixie actually die in that though? I'm trying to. I always sort of took it as Mixie could have been tricking. Like you never know with Mixie.
Yeah.
If I ever see them, I know it does, but it's just like whenever I see something like that, I'm just like, it's Mixie. He's going to be back.
Yeah.
And then obviously when they did Superman Rebirth and they did the story where they merged the Rebirth Superman and the New 52 Superman together.
Yeah.
And when they did that, they revealed that Mixie is the same Mixie in whatever universe you see him in. Like he's been to the animated series. He's been in every version of the comics. Like it's what I took inspiration from for obviously the season 5 episode.
Yep.
And that's just what I've always taken him as. Like it's one Mixie in the 5th dimension and an infinite number of Superman. As soon as he gets bored with one, he just moves on to another. Just like DC Comics with their continuity shifting, like universe changing events.
Which is why when he says I can only be here for, every 90 days, it's because this 90 days he's here, next 90 days he's here, but in between that period of time, he's
Who
here,
knows?
he's here, he's here, he's here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just always loved that. Even though Superboy didn't get a mention or anything in Rebirth in that storyline, I just like it because to me it says that Mixie and Superboy is the same Mixie in the animated series and whatever. I just love stuff like that. I think, let's face it, I don't know. I don't think any of us really know what the truth is regarding what happened on the set of Justice League. But supposedly Jeff Johns behaved badly in it, although an investigation I think cleared him. But we weren't there. We don't quite know who to believe. But so I'm not going to speak about Jeff Johns as a man, but he is one of my favorite writers of all time. He might even be my absolute
I don't know.
I
don't know if it was so much Jeff Johns who was being accused of behaving badly.
He was one of them. I know he was mentioned at least by.
I know Joss Whedon was accused of behaving badly, and given all the things that have come out, about him from all the girls.
I believe it about Joss Whedon. Absolutely, yeah. Joss Whedon is just a gigantic arsehole. Like they keep talking about, maybe Buffy will come back on Disney Plus, and it's like, well, if it does, I kind of don't want Whedon to be involved. But at the same time, if Whedon's not involved, what's even the point in doing another Firefly? Like the fact that he never did an actual apology thing, he just ignored everything and just never commented. I don't know. I feel like he should have actually put out some sort of press release, made some sort of public apology.
But you know the problem with that, Tom, is that anytime that somebody apologizes for something that happened, it's taken as either insincere, or they're just saying it because it's a press release and they want to get people to shut up,
I get that.
Or it'll come out badly, like what happened with Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, but I completely understand that. But to me, not saying anything for this long is worse because I feel like he needs to apologize, especially to like people like Charisma Carpenter, who he fired from Angel just because she got pregnant, which I think is bullshit. Like I always wondered about why Cordelia didn't return the following year, because at that point the character was no longer pregnant. So it's like, bring her back for at least a while.
Yeah.
But Joss Whedon's done a lot of horrible stuff. Like, apparently he wasn't allowed in a trailer alone with Michelle Trachtenberg in Buffy because he would make her cry. And I think that's horrible. At least come out and apologize and try to make amends, because the longer that he leaves it, he's never going to get his career back at this point. But it's like, I don't know. I just want it for the people that he's harmed, really. It's the same thing with any of these things. I think at least he should own up to his mistakes and apologize. Maybe he has done behind closed doors to people individually, but
we don't know about that.
Yeah. If he has, good on him. No, I applaud it. But, you know, it's...
But still...
It's just one of those things. I don't think Jeff Johns did anything really wrong. I think people just didn't like Jeff Johns' rewriting of the Snyder Cut, which is the main thing people moaned about.
Well, his rewriting of the Snyder Cut was to, make Superman Superman, and not giant... Yeah, not
Superman,
giant.
Superman acts more like Superman in Joss Whedon's Justice League than in any other DCEU film, except maybe Shazam, and you don't even see his face and he doesn't say anything. It's just a really Superman moment to go to a kid's high school to eat lunch with him.
Yeah,
it's just one of those things.
Yeah, one
Jeff
thing
Johns, I think he's a genius. He's my favorite writer.
I mean, he gets the character of Superman. I mean, just looking at the couple of books that he's written, with Superman, Secret Origin, Superman and the Legion, he understands the character.
Superman Brainiac, and he wrote he co-wrote a couple of stories with Richard Donner as well, which were pretty good. I forget what they're actually called.
The stories were Last Son, and then
Escape from Bizarro World, was that one of them? Or
yeah,
and like, that's fantastic, and I love his stories. I think he did a great job retelling Green Lantern's origin in it wasn't First Flight, that was the animated movie. I think it was
Secret Origin.
It was Secret Origin again.
Yeah.
And he's written some brilliant Batman and The Flash when he brought Barry Allen back from the dead. I thought that was a really good story and really told it well. And I like Jeff Johns' The Flash quite a lot.
The only problem that I have with his work on The Flash is the fact that he killed off Nora and put Henry in prison. Okay,
I like that.
It works.
I don't mind that at all. I like
works,
that.
But here's the problem with that, Tom. If you are the child of somebody who is in prison for murder, no police department is going to hire you as a forensic scientist.
True.
You know why? Because they're going to look at you.
He was adopted by a cop. That probably helped.
Yeah, but
he was adopted by Joe West, so it's like he was adopted by a cop. That would, or was that just in the CW show?
I think that was just in the CW show.
Bugger! I could have sworn that was in what's it called? Flash Rebirth.
Yeah, but they're not going to hire you, even because they're going to look at it as either
52. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, they're going to look at it as either. You're going to spend most of your time, access to our files just so you can prove that your father did not do the crime and not doing your job, or you're the son of a killer. No cop is going to want to work with you if you're the son of a killer.
Yeah.
And they don't seem to realize that.
Yeah. I think we'll just have to write it up to chalk it up to the fact that it's a comic book world.
Yeah.
Maybe the rules are slightly different in a comic book world. Maybe there's a lot of cops that became cops after being vigilantes or something, so they've had to lower the bar for criminality.
Look at the Whedon version of Justice League. Barry only got the job in the forensics lab because he got a recommendation from Bruce Wayne. Okay. That wouldn't have happened in, the standard Central City of the comics. people are still going to look at you like, oh, you're the son of that killer. No, thanks. What?
Yeah.
You know.
And let's face it, Bruce Wayne's recommendation only goes so far, because to most people, Bruce Wayne is just that rich playboy that gets drunk and goes around with all these like glamorous women and disappears on yachts and all that stuff. Like, Bruce Wayne is a billionaire playboy. Like, okay, he's got the Wayne Foundation, like he's got like all the, you know, what's the word? Philanthropic. I can't speak. Philanthropic. That's it. Like, he's got all that stuff going on. Like, he's doing a lot of good stuff, but whenever anyone sees him in public, he's got a couple of girls on his arm. He's drunk as a skunk, stumbling out of hotels, and you know, it's how good is his word, really? Like, he's one of the most famous men in the world, but he's not famous for the right reasons. Also, the public thinks.
Yeah,
you know, it's kind of cool. It works, but how far can you really push it?
Yeah.
But anyway, I think we should wrap this up, because we've really gone off on a tangent now. Like,
yeah.
If anyone that knows Frank Miller is watching this, or anyone that's friends with Frank Miller is watching, sorry. But yeah, nothing against him as a person, and I do respect the fact that he's written some incredibly influential works. But for my money, Batman was already getting darker before The Dark Knight Returns. If you look in the 80s, like, just look at the stuff. Look at the Batman that came just before Dark Knight Returns, because that's my Batman. That's the Batman I read as a kid, the 80s stuff. And I forget who wrote it, but oh god, who was the main writer on it?
I think Denny O'Neil was the main writer on Batman.
Who's the artist then? Someone who died. Someone died recently, and I remember they had some work on it. Neil Adams. Neil Adams did a little bit of it. He started it off, at least, and then as it continued, like what Neil Adams set off continued on. I've got a Batman annual here from 1992, which I think is actually all reprints of issues from before that, but it's like Batman and the Creeper from The Brave and the Bold, and it's like really fun story, and it's dark, but it's still got that comic book superhero twist to it. To me, this is what I want to see as Batman on the big screen.
Yeah,
but yeah,
they've
got a Superman TV series now. Can we just have a Batman one as well? Like, I know we're getting the Penguin series soon, but why can't we just have a Batman on television?
Penguin TV series.
I don't know, but I thought the Batman movie was fantastic, and I'm here for it. If it's Colin Farrell in that makeup playing that character again, I'm here for it. But yeah, it's a bit strange. Like, it's not the show I would have chosen personally. Like, I would have maybe chosen a show where it's like Legends of the Dark Knight, and it's like each episode it's like a different villain's point of view right before they get captured by Batman, and like that famous story where the villains are all like having a poker game or something, and they're talking about times they went up against
almost got him.
Yeah, and it's just like each of them has a slightly different idea of what Batman is. Like, I would love to see a live action TV series like that.
And the best part of that episode is the whole thing at the end when Catwoman saves him, and then she is about to kiss him, and then he disappears, and then it's like she's looking right at the camera and says, "Almost got him."
Yeah. And wasn't Batman like disguising himself as Killer Croc in that episode?
Yeah.
Brilliant. I love when Killer Croc Batman as Croc tells the story of when he almost got Batman. He's like, I hit him with a rock. He's like, you hit him with a rock? It was a big rock. Yeah, I love that episode. I need to watch that again. Maybe we'll do a commentary on it at some point, just because it's one of the best.
Batman. Yeah, that episode is great, and also the one where he's on trial. Batman is on trial in Arkham, and the judge is the Joker. That's a great episode. And that episode.
I'll tell you what, I've just had a new idea for that season 5 first Batman episode.
Okay.
I'm gonna have it still have the Man of Steel meeting where Superman lifts Batman by the rope and he's like hanging him above the sea. But I'm going to tell the story from an investigation from Clark Kent's point of view, and he'll go and interview criminals that are imprisoned from Gotham, trying to find out more about the Batman, and it will just be their retelling of how they were caught, and it would be the similar sort of thing. But I think that would be a fun way to do it, and we'll see a bunch of different.
Sounds a little bit like you're channeling a little bit of Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice there.
Yeah, but I'm going to base it in the comics.
Yeah.
It's going to be full of comic book references, and it'll be by someone that actually gives a shit. So,
yeah,
but no, a little bit like that. But it will go further. Like you'll have him interview the Penguin in Arkham Asylum, and Penguin tells him. So he interviews Killer Croc. He interviews whoever, and each of them tell their own story. Like almost got him. And yeah, I think that'd be fun. You could have like one of them who's like really crazy, like he'll tell a story, and he'll actually tell a story involving a giant bat that's trying to kill him and suck his blood. Just be like, you got to have the one story that goes a bit crazy. But they remade that story actually, like in do you remember back when Batman Begins had first came out, and they released the animated sequel that was Batman Gotham Knight?
Yes,
and it was. Basically, they retold that story of all the people's point of views of the time they saw the Batman. And it's basically the same thing, except I think it's from much lower level criminals. There's no famous villains telling the story, but really, really good little story. And yeah, I think when I write the Batman World's Finest episode of Superboy for season 5, I'm going to incorporate a lot more of that in, because I didn't quite have the overarching thing till now. Although Joker
Tom,
will be involved.
The way you're describing it, it's I hate to put it like this. You may have to do it as a 2-parter.
Yeah, I think so.
Because the amount of stuff you want to do, plus the fact
maybe I'll do it as a 2-parter, but I'll separate them. I'll do an episode between them. Like it will have the investigation, and then maybe part 2 will be a couple of episodes later, and that's when he actually meets Batman and has the Joker plotline that I was already planning.
Yeah,
it's Batman. He's going to be in multiple episodes anyway. I might as well just space it out a little bit more. But,
and then of course, did we tell everybody who we've chosen as our Joker?
I think we did. If we didn't, Crispin Glover is going to be Joker in this. We're now just going to have to start casting Killer Croc and Penguin and all the others. But I do know that I want a British Penguin, because I like when the Penguin is British, especially if he's Cockney.
I think I have an idea.
Yeah. I thought Sylvester McCoy might have been good, but I think we had another role in mind for him.
Yeah. What about Bob Hoskins for the Penguin?
That's great.
Because he's supposed to be short. Bob Hoskins is short, little portly. He's that. He was British, and he can do a Cockney accent.
Bob Hoskins is Penguin in our universe. That's it. Don't know who will have Catwoman as. That might be interesting.
Yeah. Do we want to go dark hair? We want to go more like Michelle Pfeiffer, blonde hair.
We can go fucking Eartha Kitt. I don't care. We can go Halle Berry, Eartha Kitt. Like I don't care if she's black, white. I don't care. It's Catwoman's Catwoman.
As long as she's,
as long as she's got to be able to play the character, but her race makes no difference whatsoever to me.
All right, well, we'll discuss it.
We'll think about that one, yeah. But yeah, and I don't know if we already announced who is playing Harvey Bullock in that story.
I don't recall if we did.
It's going to be Columbo himself, Peter Falk.
Oh yes, Peter Falk.
Yeah, I just love to see. He's not big like Bullock, but you can just imagine him. I don't know. I think it'd be great. And he's going to be alongside, is it Dick Van Dyke we're having as Commissioner Gordon?
I think that's who it was, yeah.
Yeah. Because I wasn't sure if I was going to make it an older Gordon or if I was going to go young, sort of detective, like Captain Gordon type, and then it would have been a young Bryan Cranston who was working on Power Rangers at the time. But
he was?
He was. Well, I think he did like voice work right from the start of Power Rangers. I think. Okay. But I know he was in Diagnosis Murder alongside Dick Van Dyke in 1993 or 1992. So it's. Yeah.
I know it around.
I think either of them could work. Maybe Bryan Cranston plays the younger Gordon in a flashback. in an episode. Who knows?
I do know that Cranston around that same time was on a lot of episodes of Seinfeld as Dr. Tim Watley.
Yeah, about that age, like, you know, he still looks old enough to be a cop. Like, he doesn't look like a kid. Like, that's one of the things. That's one of the great things about Cranston. He looked mature even back in 1992. Like, it's like the guy reached. It's like that meme that used to go around about Morgan Freeman and Sean Connery, where it's like at a certain point you reach peak coolness and you just stop aging.
Yep.
Samuel L. Jackson is still there. Like, he reached peak coolness at some point in the 90s, and he's not aged a day since. That's why they could do Captain Marvel movie, like, and have him set in the 90s. And I doubt it doesn't look like there was that much CGI going on. You could tell it was a little bit, but anyway. I think we should leave it. We should cut it off there because we're just going to end up talking about season 5 castings and stuff. But thank you everyone so much for watching. We hope you've enjoyed our review of this issue. Any last things you'd like to say about it before we shoot?
No, I think we've pretty much beaten this horse to death.
Yeah.
But everybody, don't forget, like, share, and subscribe, and come back and watch us again.
Yep. Take care, guys. See us again. Same super time, same super channel.